So if you own an 11 to 14 5-liter powered F-150 and you're watching this video, then you've probably found out that the easiest way to squeeze extra power out of that motor without actually turning any wrenches is investing in a handheld tuner like the one I've got in my hand. And this one in particular is the Edge Gas Evolution CS2, and this is the tuner that you should be checking out if you want plenty of preloaded tunes for towing, performance, and economy, and you want all kinds of cool functionalities like the ability to read and clear trouble codes and monitor engine performance in real time using some pretty cool gauge clusters and digital readouts. This thing's awesome for another reason in particular, which includes the Edge accessory system. I'll get to that in just a moment, but first let's take a look at what kind of performance we can get with the preloaded performance tune. So we went ahead and we ran our truck on the Dyno bone stock and we made 280 horsepower and 305 pound-feet of torque. We then installed the performance tune from the Edge tuner. We left everything else the same and we did not do any custom tuning parameters at all, and we ended up making 289 horsepower and 319 pound-feet of torque. That makes for peak gains of 9 horsepower and 14 pound-feet of torque. But if you take a second look at that graph, you'll see some very impressive curve gains, relatively low on the RPM band. We actually made gains upwards of a whopping 46 horsepower and a crazy 90 pound-feet of torque. Those are some pretty big gains. They really speak for themselves, and those curve gains are awesome because that's what you're actually gonna feel when you're driving around on the streets and mashing the pedal at those green lights. Now, back to that AES thing real quick. Edge developed their own method for you to install plug-and-play gauges, monitors, and sensors without having to do a bunch of custom wiring and without actually having to modify the ECU. A lot of times these trucks don't display the kind of information that you want to see, like certain temperatures and certain pressures like oil pressure, so Edge developed their own sensors which plug directly into the data cable on the Edge tuner, and it's pre-programmed to accept those accessories, so it makes monitoring that performance a lot easier. That's a big bonus if you got something like a forced induction setup, or you're running your truck at the track on a regular basis, or you're like me and you're just analytical and you want all that information to make sure everything's running right. Now, I'm also happy to say that the Edge tuner is very straightforward. It's a very user-friendly device. Setting up the tuner and tuning your truck should only take 15-30 minutes, so I can't really give this a crazy install rating. It's a very soft 1 out of 3 wrenches on my difficulty meter. Literally anybody can do it. You don't even need any tools. So again, if you want an all-inclusive tuner that has all kinds of cool preloaded tunes and the ability to monitor all kinds of engine parameters, go ahead and stick around. I'm going to show you guys how to tune your truck, and I'll walk you through all the features step by step. All right, so using the Edge tuner is very straightforward. Like I said, obviously you have to set it up before you start using it. So go ahead and get your windshield mount on there, and you want to also get the data cable. The HDMI end of the cable goes in the back of the HDMI port here, and the OBD2 port goes underneath the steering column. All right, so with your tuner plugged in and the windshield mount where you want it, you can begin using the tuner. You want to make sure that your key is in the on position. It's going to display this little warning here. That's just a disclaimer. You can go ahead and click the enter key to ignore it. And that's going to bring us to our home screen. It's going to let you know it's going to display that little annoying disclaimer 3 more times. So we want to deal with it every single time. Now, if you're using the Edge tuner for the first time, it's going to ask you to select the appropriate vehicle. Obviously, we're working with our 5-liter F-150, so we want to select Ford. It's going to ask you to confirm that you have the correct vehicle selection. Go ahead and hit enter. And it's going to begin communicating with the ECU to make sure that you have the right profile selected. Now, obviously, our truck does not have a manual transmission, so we're going to hit the home button for no. Now, on the Edge tuner, the home screen is technically the gauge cluster screen. I'll show you guys how to modify that and display different engine parameters, but for now we're going to go over how to actually tune your truck. So to get to the home screen on the device, you want to press the home button. Now, the tuning options are located under programming, so go ahead and click enter. Now you can see there are a couple different options available on here. Obviously, the stock tune will do nothing. That's a good way to revert your truck back to stock if you've installed a tune. You also have the economy tune to get better MPGs. You have a towing tune to firm up shift points, and you have your race tune. That's going to be our performance tune. We're going to select that to see what this thing can do. Now, it's going to ask that you make sure you have at least 91 octane fuel in the tank because it will advance timing and it'll make changes to air and fuel, so you need that higher octane rating. Our truck does have the correct pump gas in it, so we're going to click yes to continue. It might ask you to cycle through the ignition once or twice while it's tuning, so just keep in mind you don't want to leave the tuner idle for too long. You don't want to drain your battery during this process. Now at this point, the Edge tuner is going to begin setting up the tune file itself. It's also going to save your stock tune file. It's very important that you do not unplug the tuner. You also want to make sure you do not turn your key to the off position, or you will interrupt the process. You could actually brick your ECU, in which case you might need to have your truck flashed by the dealer. So again, it's very important you do not disrupt this process. All right, now once the tuner has saved your stock file, it's going to ask if you want to create a custom program. This is where you can actually modify the preloaded tune file, and you can make changes to certain engine parameters like timing, air, or fuel. Now you should only make those changes if you know what you're doing, because, for lack of better phrasing, if you don't make the right changes, you could cause physical damage to your motor. Now we're not interested in making any custom programming changes. We're only interested in what the preloaded tune can do, so we're going to select the home button for no. Now once you've selected that option, whether you do any custom programming or not, it's going to make sure that you have your key in the on position one last time. Go ahead and select enter to continue, and it's going to ask you to cycle through it a couple times, and it's going to begin installing that preloaded tune file. And again, during the setup process and during the writing of the file itself, it's very important that, again, don't turn off the ignition, don't unplug the tuner at any point in time. Now once it's finished uploading the tune file, it's going to ask you to remove your key from the ignition entirely and press enter to continue. This is going to let you know that programming is complete, and once you've done so, it'll return you back to the tuning home screen, and it'll display your current tune level. As you can see, we have level 3 displayed with our race tune. That lets us know that our tune has been installed successfully. Pretty straightforward. Now if you guys want to stick around, I'm going to show you all the other functions and features of the Edge tuner. Next, we're going to go over how to change the gauges, since that is the default menu on the tuner. As you can see, it has some default values, including MPGs and coolant temperature. You can alternate between two tachometer style gauges, or you can stick with the basic tachometer gauge and these digital numeric values on the right-hand side. But at any rate, to change any of the individual gauges, you want to select the enter button, and you can see it highlighted our engine coolant temperature. You can use the arrows to navigate to the other gauges, and you can change them by selecting the enter button again. This is going to bring you to the home screen for the individual gauge you just selected. If you want to change what is being displayed, you want to click on Select New PID or PID. That's just a fancy acronym for the engine parameter that it's monitoring. You can see we have a bunch of different options in here. We're not going to go over all of them because there are so many different things that you can monitor, but we're going to change that. Let's go ahead and monitor our transmission fluid temperature just for fun. Go ahead and click the enter button. Now you can see listed at the top there, it changed from MPGs to trans fluid temp. If you want to make changes to the gauge color itself, you can do so in here. And if you want to select an alert for a particular gauge, for example, if it reaches a maximum or minimum value, you can set that up in here. As you can see, you can actually select an alert depending on what temperature the gauge reaches, and you can have that alert make a noise or not if you want to. And the same rules apply if you want to change any other gauges. Again, select the enter button, navigate to the gauge you want to change, select enter once again, and you can make the changes that you wish. Now continuing on those gauges real quick, if you want to change the layout of them, you can find the options under Screen Layout. Go ahead and click enter. Now if you want to change the background on the device itself, you can do so by selecting the background option. You can see Edge provides some pretty cool backgrounds for us. And you can change the layout of the gauges themselves. You have two layout options that you can select from and alternate between them, but selecting each layout option will give you the different layouts for the gauges themselves. If you remember from a second ago, our layout had one tachometer gauge and 3 numeric gauges. If you want to change those to something else, we can select our needles gauge. This is going to give us 2 more retro tachometer style layouts. Once you've selected it, you can hit the home button and you can see how it changed those. Now, this is layout 1. If you wanted to change the layout for layout 2, that's going to be this other screen here on the left and right arrows. Again, if you want to make changes to that, simply select the home button, go to Screen Layout. You can select Layout 2, change that layout, and now you can alternate between those 2 layouts on the gauge screen itself. All right, next up on our list is records. Records will display the last recorded values from your gauge screens, and this is simply useful if you want to troubleshoot your truck, you want to benchmark it, or you simply want to pull data from the last time you were driving around. It'll also display the last known metrics from the performance test, which we'll go over shortly, but at any rate, if you want to clear these records out, simply select Clear All, and it'll provide the default values from before you actually turned your truck over. And to piggyback off of what I was just mentioning with those performance tests, the Edge Tuner does allow you to benchmark your truck with different performance tests when you're actually driving around. It actually gives you the option of recording your 0 to 60 time as well as your quarter mile time, and it'll even give you a rough estimation of your horsepower to your wheels. If you want to perform any of these tests, it's pretty straightforward. Make sure your key's in the on position, but your truck is turned off, and select the test that you want to run. As an example, we can select our 0 to 60 test. It's going to bring you to the instructional prompt here. It's going to tell you exactly what you need to do in order to perform the test. Once you've met each of the requirements on here, the Edge Tuner will automatically begin the test and record that information for you. And next up on our list is the ability to collect data logs. Data logs are very useful if you want more in-depth analysis of your ECU and your engine parameters. This is useful if you want to custom tune your truck on the dyno, or you want to pull advanced troubleshooting information based on any mechanical or electronic issues that you're having with the truck itself. Now, in order to turn on these data run files, it's pretty straightforward. Simply hit the enter button. It's going to let you know that data logging will begin when you return to the gauge screen. So when you select the home button or when you turn your truck over, it will automatically begin recording that data log file. It'll also automatically save that file so that you can pull it off of the tuner later using the provided USB cable. And you can see once we confirmed that little disclaimer there, we now have the on clarification for data run 1. You can save up to 5 data files at a time. Another cool feature of the Edge Tuner, one of my personal favorites, is the diagnostics function. If you ever have a check engine light, this is an easy way to read and clear those trouble codes. So as you can see, I selected the diagnostics option, and we're going to select trouble codes. That's the only option on there, and it gives you those 2 options that I just said, reading, clearing, trouble codes. If you have a check engine light and you want to know the cause of it, you can select read DTCs, and the Edge Tuner is going to scan your ECU and it's going to pull up the alphanumeric code. It'll usually be something like P001. Then you can do a little bit of research and find out what exactly the issue is. Now, obviously our truck does not have any check engine lights on it currently, but if you did have any issues, it would display those codes here. If you want to get rid of that light, it's really simple. Simply select clear DTCs, and it will clear that code and turn the light off on your dash. Just keep in mind, until you actually fix the underlying issue, that light will probably turn back on. All right, next up on our list is the mileage coach. This is a cool little feature that allows you to keep track of your MPGs as well as the cost of your fuel consumption itself. It's designed to gauge and monitor driving habits. That's a little disclaimer there. Go ahead and click the enter button to continue. Now you can see here it's going to help calculate your average fuel economy. It's also going to give you your mileage cost based on what the current fuel price is. Now you do have to put in some information on here to get this to work, including the current fuel price, and you also have to put in what your current fuel economy is, which you can pull off of your dash using Ford's factory information system. Now next up on our list is the Maintenance Manager. This is a pretty cool way to keep track of all the recurring maintenance that you have to do to your truck. You obviously want to make sure the Maintenance Manager is turned on. You also have to put in your current odometer reading. That way you can set up alerts depending on how many miles you've driven your truck. Once you've done that, go ahead and select Maintenance Items, and it's going to display all the different alerts that you can actually set up. Now obviously changing the oil is one of the most critical and one of the most recurring maintenance issues. So we're going to select that, and I'll show you how to turn this alert on. Now, by default, it says that the alert is off, so go ahead and turn that on. And if you want to turn the alert off and reset it, you can select Service Performed. That's going to let you know that in the next 4,000 or 5,000 miles, or whatever interval you set the alert to, it will trip it again. That's an easy way to reset it. Now, how to do that? You want to set the interval. Let's go ahead and select 3,000 miles as our standard oil change interval. So now that we put that interval in, and once you put in your current odometer reading, once you've traveled 3,000 miles, the Edge Tuner will give you an audible and a visual alert that it's time to change your oil. Again, this is a nice alternative to that little ugly sticker you have in the corner of your windshield, and you can set alerts for all kinds of different maintenance needs. So those are the primary functions of the Edge tuner. We'll go over the settings real quick of the tuner itself. First thing on the settings menu are vehicle settings. Now, if you're changing your tires out, putting larger wheels and tires on there, obviously your speedometer is not going to read correctly, so you can actually change the tire size that the ECU is reading. And you can see we have different options here: English, metric. You can also put in the circumference, or you can actually put in the height or diameter of the tire. But at any rate, once you've made that change, it will modify the ECU and it'll calibrate your speedometer so your speed is displaying correctly. Now, alert settings is a useful little setting. It's a nice fail-safe depending on if you have any issues with your truck. Basically, there are different options in here where you can set certain values, and if any of the engine parameters exceed those values, it will provide you with an alert through the tuner. You want to make sure alerts are turned on. It's going to let you know that it will not trigger any alerts unless the vehicle is actually idling above 400 RPM. But at any rate, you can select certain alerts here. You can actually set something for cylinder head temperature. So if your engine begins overheating, you can set the temperature point for that. And you can also set an alarm that will actually audibly sound if the cylinder head temperature exceeds the setting that you put it at. Again, nice little convenient fail-safe if you don't notice the lights on your dash, or if you don't notice any physical problems with your vehicle, even though it is actually experiencing those problems. This is a great fail-safe. Now, if you want to keep audible alerts, you can actually set the duration of the sound there. You can see by default, it'll beep at you for 3 seconds. You can actually change the duration of that alert. You can make it shorter or longer if you'd like. You can also change settings on the device screen itself, including the background color. You can also determine how long the screen will stay bright until it begins to automatically dim from not being used. You can also determine how long you want the screen to stay on entirely until you actually stop using the device and it automatically powers down. You can also input your vehicle weight here. That's important for certain parameters and gauges, as well as data logging. And you can determine what kind of units you want your engine parameters to display in by default from the settings menu. But the most important setting on the Edge tuner under settings is the factory reset. This will completely undo anything that you've actually done to the tuner itself, as well as any changes or calibrations you've made to the ECU. This will not untune your truck, so you'll still have to go to the factory tune through the programming menu, but the factory reset will revert all settings that you might have made otherwise. Now, the last option on the Edge tuner is the help function. This is really only going to be used for diagnostics or troubleshooting. You can get some basic info about the tuner itself, including the firmware and software versions. And you can also pull some basic vehicle information, including your strategy, your VIN, and that strategy code is displayed here under calibration ECM. That's useful if you're tuning your truck or if you have any issues with your preloaded tune. They also provide the contact info for Edge tuners. If you ever have any problems, they have their phone number, email, as well as their physical address displayed. Tech support tools we're not going to get into. You should not make any changes or go into this setting unless you have problems with the tuner, and only if the Edge customer service technicians have told you to enter the tech support tools. So just leave that for now unless you ever run into problems and you need support. So as you saw, tuning your truck only takes a couple of minutes, and this thing's got plenty of other cool features to keep you occupied for quite some time. Now, if you wanted to check out the Edge accessory system, simply go to Edge Tuner's website and you'll find all those different packages and all those different sensors that you might need for some additional plug-and-play engine monitoring. That also wraps up my review of the Edge Gas Evolution CS2 tuner fitting your 11 to 14 5-liter powered F150. I'm Travis, thanks for watching, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.